Alvaro Bautista, the championship challenger, starting just 6th with Jonathan Ray very much back on top and leading away from pole position in race 1. Bautista's in trouble. Bautista getting caught up around turn number 1. Davies down the inside of Sykes takes 2nd position. Bautista's already up into the top 10 positions. Alvaro Bautista through for 5th position. Crucial win. He gets back to winning ways. Away we go towards the first turn. Bautista cautious early on. He's already lost places. Bautista gets down the inside of Michael van der Mark. Look at the closing speed he's got on Sandro Cortese. Brilliant move from Alvaro Bautista into 3rd position. And Toprak's got the move done. Ray to win the Tissot Super Bowl race. Ray, Bautista lows the top 3 in the championship on the front row, and we're underway. This is a disastrous start once again for Alvaro Bautista. Here comes Bautista, he's certainly got the speed. Alvaro Bautista is certainly trying to manage a place on the podium. Bautista hits the front, Razgatlioglu's got the inside line. Bautista cuts the inside line on Razgatlioglu. Closest finish of 2019 so far. Bautista has the grunt of the Ducati. Alvaro Bautista is back on top here in Portimao. 3 weeks on from our trip to Portugal, the Motul FIM Superbike World Championship lands in France. The 11th stop on the 2019 calendar and the season's final European destination. We're in the département of Nièvre, 250 kilometres south of Paris, for the Pirelli French Round. An event with over 30 years already in the history books and potentially another chapter to be written this weekend with the world title up for grabs. Welcome to the 4.4-kilometre Circuit de Nevers, the spiritual home of the French Round and its regular venue since 2003. A course where stability under braking and agility for direction changes are richly rewarded. A mixture of chicanes and low-speed corners, the most notable features here. Race starts are unconventional in Magny-Cours, since the start-finish straight is just 250 metres long. It's an even shorter run from the line to the high-speed turn 1, so watch out for that pinch point into the Grande Courbe. Rather than on the main straight, riders reach their highest speed before the braking zone into Adelaide. It's the slowest corner in World Superbikes, but its wide entry and exit makes it a regular overtaking hotspot. Other track characteristics include those high and hard curves, particularly in turns 16 and 17. We're in Kawasaki country. Both lap records were set on the green machine last season. WorldSBK reaches its 800th race milestone here in Magny-Cours, the 29th race of 2019, now officially World Superbike's longest season thanks to the new format with the addition of the Tissot Superpole race. Alvaro Bautista will be nothing but glad that there are still 9-point scoring opportunities, having seen a 61-point lead slip and a 91-point deficit emerge. Plenty to keep an eye out for this weekend, with an enthralling season-long fight for bronze still undecided, and plenty of contenders for podium places here, including home hero Loris Baz. But Steve English alongside me. The focus is on the top 2 in a title duel that could well be decided here in France.
Yeah, could well be decided this weekend. The big thing's going to be that Alvaro Bautista is going to have to come from the 5th row of the grid to try and keep his championship hopes alive, because after that Superpole session he really faces an uphill task on his Ducati.
Bautista then will be hoping to carve his way through, and he's not the only rider who's stranded further back than he might have hoped for. Track conditions have improved significantly though since the Superpole session earlier on here today, and that will certainly work in Bautista's favour.
Yeah, for Bautista, for Cortese, for Razgatlioglu, they're all a bit further down the order than they would have expected. But this is a brand new track for this man, Alvaro Bautista. He's never been to Magny-Cours before, so losing most of Friday's running because of the wet weather and a wet weather Superpole means that you come to this race now 21 laps around Magny-Cours. The conditions have improved a lot since the Superpole session. You'd expect that by the time we get to the start of the race, slick tyres could well be in order for some of these riders. It's going to be a real challenge for Bautista, given that he doesn't have that experience around this racetrack.
We saw last time out in Portimao how an underwhelming grid position really cost Alvaro Bautista. He was muscled aside around the first couple of turns on the opening lap, and from there it was much harder for him to manage his weekend. By race 2 he was where he needed to be, but that's not good enough for Bautista. He needs consistent wins in the remaining races.
Well, basically Bautista needs to be perfect for the rest of the season. He needs to be back on the form that we saw at the start of the year when he won 11 races in a row. Of course, for Bautista, he's had his ups and downs through the season, and unfortunately for him, we're now at the point where he's got absolutely no margin for error if he's to try and stay in title contention. And really, with Jonathan Rea in the form that he's in right now, it's very difficult to see how Bautista can stay in contention unless Rea makes a lot of mistakes.
We saw Bautista tentative into turn 1 last time out in Portimao. Here in Magny-Cours, he's going to have to push for it, isn't he?
Well, the good thing about Magny-Cours is turn 1 is a very fast corner. You come back one gear and you just try and roll through that corner as quickly as possible. If you're down the inside, you give yourself the chance of trying just to dictate things a little bit, but it really is all about trying to set yourself up for turn 5, the Adelaide hairpin.
As far as manufacturers on the front rows of the grid, we've got quite a nice variety. 2 Kawasaki's on the front row with 1 Yamaha, another Yamaha on the second row with a Ducati and a BMW. But the bad news for Ducati is that their main men, Chaz Davies down 11th, Bautista down in 14th. Both will be trying to find their way through here. There's 2 Ducatis amongst the field in front of them, Rinaldi 4th and Lavati 8th.
Yeah, Rinaldi did really well as well to qualify in the second row of the grid, put his lap time in right at the end, but positive for Rinaldi, exactly what he needs to do, because Rinaldi's a talented rider. He's been very well regarded by Ducati over the last few years. Of course, Stock 1000 came through that, and then into the Superbike class with Barney last year to race in the European Championship events, and then for this year, switching to the Barney team after being with the Aruba Junior team last season. And he's just been able to build through the season. He's had some flashes, he's shown some potential, but he's also shown just how difficult that Ducati is to ride and to get set up, because his results have been up and down, just like some of the other Ducati riders as well.
Strong effort from Loris Baz as well, and we mustn't underestimate him here, because although that lap time for 5th position was set in the wet, he's been consistent through wet and dry so far here in Magny-Cours.
Yeah, he's looked good all the way through this weekend, and Baz was very strong in Portimao as well before that Superpole crash. It really put him on the back foot all the way through the weekend.
So looking forward to this one. It feels like an age since Portimao, and we're in the end of season run in here. After Europe, we've got 2 end of season flyaways. Now it's just a question of whether Alvaro Bautista can stay close enough to Jonathan Rea. He's not close enough on the grid, and Rea could have an opportunity to sprint clear here. Surely that's going to be his target, but equally Michael van der Mark has been good competition for him.
Yeah, and van der Mark's looked strong all the way through here. Jonathan Rea is keen to really assert himself. We saw in his crashes in free practice, he was pushing very hard during those sessions. He's able to take the pole position here. When you look at the conditions now, very different to what we had in that Superpole session. You can see blue skies, a lot of sunshine, air temperatures increased. It's up to 18 degrees now, so they're expecting to get a little bit warmer, but not too much warmer than this. This is the ideal conditions, and it's just allowing that track surface to dry more and more. You'd expect that these riders will go out there on slick tyres.
Let's take a look at the grid then, starting with the front row, and 2 Kawasaki men chatting to one another there before we get underway. Jonathan Rea starts from P1 and Leon Haslam from P3. Rea winner in 3 of the last 4 races here in Magny-Cours, 8 of the last 10 races in 2019. He certainly starts as favourite. Alongside him on P2, Michael van der Mark, 3rd place from race 1 in Portugal. His first podium appearance since Jerez. Recovery from a fractured right arm now complete. He'll be looking to add to his 3 podium finishes from the last 3 stagings of the French round. Completing that front row is Leon Haslam from P3, no less than 11th, 5th place finishes in 2019. That's where he finds himself in the championship. Still in contention though for 3rd overall. Haslam will be looking to rediscover the podium pace he displayed in Misano and Donington.
Yeah, so what are Leon Haslam and Jonathan Rea talking about there? They're talking about their siding lap. They're trying to see which tyres to use during the course of this race, because for Jonathan Rea, it's really important that he has Haslam there as a rear gunner as well. He wants Haslam to have a successful race here because it means that he's able to keep another rider between him and Alvaro Bautista. So he wants to make sure that both of those riders are on the same wavelength for what they're going to do with their tyres. They want to give themselves the best chance possible of having a good result. You can see Toprak Razgatlioglu just making his way through to the grid. We didn't quite get too many flashes of what tyres everyone went out on there, other than Bautista. We saw that he went out in his siding lap on a wet tyre. You'd expect all the riders did that, and then they'll make their decision as to whether they can change to a slick tyre.
So Toprak will be among the riders who's really got a lot of work to do to fight his way through the field, as we see Leon Haslam, who will be completing that front row of the grid. The duel was very much between Rea and Van der Mark in that Super Pole session, and Haslam almost went under the radar, but he was right on the pace, just a couple of tenths of a second back in the end. Yeah,
good performance from Haslam. Good performance from him all the way through this weekend as well. He was up at the top of the timesheets in the wet weather running yesterday as well, so Leon's looking pretty strong, and he knows he has to be strong as well because he's trying to find a ride for next year. It looks more and more likely that he'll be replaced at Kawasaki for next season.
Look at the second row of the grid then. Michael Ruben Rinaldi, Loris Baz and Tom Sykes. Here is Loris Baz, the Frenchman. Plenty of support at his home round this weekend, hoping to make it onto the podium for the first time in France and for the first time since 2014. He hasn't been far away on occasion. 2 fourth places, his best to date for 2019.
And you could see there for the Tenkate team just wishing a happy birthday to their coordinator Monique, and they'll be hoping to be able to have a glass of champagne and a bottle of Prosecco afterwards, maybe on the podium as well, because for that Tenkate team, they look strong this weekend.
Alongside Baz, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, who was the standout performer, I would suggest, of that Super Pole session. And also Tom Sykes, who has had a quiet weekend, it must be said, Sykes, but who will line up in 6th position here. And he'll be optimistic of challenging towards the front of the field. Double winner here in his 2013 championship winning campaign. The man from Huddersfield down to 8th in the standings as a result of a resurgent Chaz Davies. An indifferent weekend as well in Portimao. Ended a run of 3 podiums in 3 rounds.
Yeah, and for Sykes, it's been an impressive season all the way through. Talking to him the other day just about the progress that BMW has made, and he was talking about the fact that people were disappointed with Portimao, whereas at the start of the season that's exactly what they would have expected them to have been throughout the course of the season. So it really has been impressive from BMW.
Jonathan Rea once again picking up a Super Pole watch from Tissot, and well, Rea really has been stunning in terms of single lap pace in 2019.
Yeah, Jonathan's been able to make a big step forward with his Super Pole performances. That's his 22nd career pole position in WorldSBK. So for a man that for a long time was being talked about as being not the strongest of qualifiers, he really has been able to make that into a forte of his as well now.
We catch up with Michael Ruben Rinaldi, his best ever qualifying position. Ruben Rinaldi averaging just 10 points per weekend over the last 3 rounds. This is a good opportunity for him here. He suffered his worst weekend of the 2018 season, though, around this circuit. So not the best of venues for him in the past, perhaps, but this is a great opportunity to put that right.
Yeah, for Rinaldi, this is a chance to be able to go out there and just remind people of exactly how good he can be.
Row 3, Alex Lowes, Eugene Laverty and Ryuichi Kianari. A slightly unusual look to the grid here after a wet weather session earlier on today. Alex Lowes, P7, hasn't managed a podium in a full-length race since Thailand. A record he'll want to put straight here in this one, despite the fact that Magny-Cours, never his happiest of hunting grounds, I would suggest. Just 1 podium here in 10 attempts for him.
Yeah, and for the riders on that 3rd row of the grid, it really is a case of trying to make sure you're able to make a good start, get yourself into the right position for the run down in towards turn 5. That's where you can make the moves on the opening lap. That's where you can put riders under pressure.
Eugene Laverty will start from P8, unexpectedly off the pace in Portimao last time out, but this is another circuit where he's performed well in the past. 3 podium finishes to his name here, still awaiting his first top 3 finish of 2019.
Yeah, and for Laverty, he was in podium contention in Aragon at the start of the year, hasn't really been able to get into that ever since. The Go 11 team they've struggled at times through the year. We've seen plenty of mistakes from one part or the other, and it's just been a challenging season for them. Those injuries haven't helped.
Top Honda, Ryuichi Kianari, the Japanese veteran, 6 points fewer than teammate Kamiya, despite having made more than double the Brit starts in 2019. He's struggled throughout this campaign, and Super Pole today, a bright spot for him.
Yeah, Keo looking good in that Super Pole session in the wet and changeable conditions. and he'll just be trying to do what he can to try and score some points in the dry here.
He's got Hondas around him because there are two of them on row number 4. Leon Camia starts from 10th position alongside Alessandro Del Bianco, who starts from 12th, and sandwiched between the two of them is Chaz Davies. A row back from them, Marco Melandri, Alvaro Bautista and Sylvain Barrier. Bautista all the way down in 14th position. Disaster for him. 47 points banked last time out in Portimao. His best score since Assen in April. Remember, he led at one stage by 61 points. He trails now by 91. Just one win in 10 races.
Yeah, and that tells the story of one of the biggest collapses we've ever really seen in racing. And for Alvaro Bautista, he tries to recover from that here this weekend at a brand new track, Magny-Cours. Xavi Fares here this weekend. Fares being linked with a lot of seats for next season, including the Tenkate Yamaha seat for next year. So we could well see Xavi Fares back on a World SBK grid next season.
Would certainly be great to see that, because he did a super job through 2018. As we pick up that fourth row of the grid with Chaz Davies starting from P11. The Welshman has a great record around this circuit. 5 podiums in his last 7 races here. 3 times a winner at the French round. Can he find that blistering pace again this weekend after what was an inconsistent display 3 weeks ago in Portimao?
Yeah, and you can see there the story of Davis's season, highs and lows, and unfortunately for him, not enough highs, because last time out in Portimao, he actually was quite strong, but said that went the wrong direction on the Sunday, made a few mistakes, and it just sort of pushed him back. Didn't quite get to show his true potential in the races on Sunday.
Leon Camia starts P10, making a welcome return to the grid for his first race start since Assen back in April. The 33-year-old crashed into a stricken Sandro Cortese at Superpole in Imola. He's been out with shoulder ligament damage since then, so he will be delighted just to be back up and running.
Yeah, for Camia, it's just important to show his face, remind everyone what he can do, and try and get himself sorted for next season, because obviously with Bautista coming in, it looks like that Camia won't be involved with that full HRC entrant next year, so he's trying to make sure he can find something for next year, linked with a couple of different rides, Pachetti, maybe even staying on that Marawaki Honda as well.
Row number 5 with Melandri, Bautista and Barrier, and Melandri could be the first obstacle for Alvaro Bautista to try and find his way past. He's known for robust defences of positions, the Italian. Winner here in 2014 on the Aprilia. He's gone 13 races without a podium finish in 2019. I'm sure he'd dearly like to end what will be his final World SBK season on a high. The former number 2 in the world currently sits just 9th overall. We cut back to Alessandro Del Bianco, our wet weather expert. I said he would have been doing a bit of a rain dance. 2-1 up versus fellow Honda struggler Chianari in Portugal. Those two largely in normal conditions, bringing up the rear. That wet race 1 at Donington Park, the bright spot for the Italian, and unless conditions are challenging again, you wouldn't necessarily expect him to be able to hold that place.
Yeah, exactly, and for Del Bianco, he'll just fall down the field here in the dry conditions. One man that probably won't be doing that next year, Lorenzo Savadori. He'll be back in World SBK next season alongside the Pedercini team. You can see team manager Lucio on the right hand side. Good news to have Savadori back. He's racing in the Moto E Championship as well this year, and he's very excited to get back into World SBK. Did a good job at times in the past.
Back to Bautista. What is this man thinking at this stage? He'll be much more confident with these conditions as they are now than what we saw earlier on. He limited his running on Friday, didn't seem too interested in going out in the wet, and didn't seem too capable of getting among the front positions in the wet. But you can see the blue sky behind him, perfect for Bautista.
Perfect for Bautista in some ways, but a big challenge for him because he doesn't have that much experience around here in the dry, only FP3. So a big task ahead of him for what he can achieve here this weekend. Where is he going to be strong? The exit of turn 3, Estoril, up that straight down towards turn 5. Other than that, the changes of direction are going to be very difficult for that Ducati rider. For the riders that are in front of him, that's where they really need to punish him, from turn 5, 6, 7, down into the 180 corner and all the way back towards the end of the lap. That's where you need to bridge your gap to Alvaro Bautista. But Bautista should be able to pick off quite a few riders in the early laps.
If you're sitting at home and watching, make your bets as to where Bautista's going to be by the end of the first sector. Completing that 5th row, Sylvain Barrier, the Frenchman who was racing regularly for BMW on his last visit here back in 2014. He scored a 10th place finish, showed no signs of replicating that with a first appearance of 2019 in Portimao last time out. But he has made a step forward this weekend.
Yeah, Barrier here with a level playing field, and what we've seen is that some riders just willing to put out more track time in the wet conditions, and Barrier was able to do a good job during that Super Pole session, qualifying on the 5th row of the grid. He's in front of some big names there with the likes of Razgatlioglu, Cortese, Tadej Mercado with a lot of experience, Marcus Ryderberger and Jordi Torres as well, so he's done a good job to qualify so high.
Mercado, one of the wet weather experts who actually didn't capitalise on that session, because riders who are well known for going well in the wet, Baz, for example, Del Bianco, are up there and challenging, but Mercado some way further back than we might have expected. Yeah,
for Tadej you would have expected him to be a couple of rows further up the field, but for the Aurelak Kawasaki rider, maybe a few challenges during the course of that session. 2 challenges this weekend for Sandro Cortese as well, though.
Cortese starts from P17. 3 top 10 finishes in Portugal. He was back on form there after a crash-strewn spell prior to the summer break. Defending 10th in the world is realistically the most the German can hope for. He sits 37 points behind teammate Marco Melandri, and having been generally a good qualifier in 2019, he was caught out somewhat by conditions. Starts all the way back on the 6th row alongside Toprak Razgatlioglu in 16th and Leandro Tati Mercado, who starts in P18. This is one of 3 circuits where Mercado has put in a 6th place finish in WorldSBK. His best result to date, Portimao 3 weeks ago, was somewhat of a struggle. He still only has 4 top 10 finishes to his name in 2019.
Yeah, for Mercado it has been a tough season, that Aurelak Kawasaki squad. Lots of question marks about whether they'll be on the grid next year or if they'll be with the Kawasaki as well. So for Mercado, important to be able to come through and score some points today.
Completing a 20-rider field, Marcus Ryderberger starts from P19 and Jordi Torres starts from 20th position. The focus at the front of the field is on the duel between Ray and Van der Mark. Strong supporting cars, Bautista among others, trying to fight their way through from the lower order of the grid. It's the business end of the 2019 campaign. History in the making. This afternoon, WorldSBK celebrates its 800th race, and tomorrow Jonathan Ray might just have a shot at wrapping up a record-breaking 5 times World Championship status. Alvaro Bautista is the one man who can stop him, but it's now or never for the Spaniard, and the odds are stacked against him. 91-point deficit, a track he hasn't previously visited, and inconsistent weather conditions that restricted his running here yesterday. A strong supporting cast includes Tom Sykes, Chaz Davies and Marco Melandri, who've all been race winners here. Race 1 of the Pirelli French round from the Circuit de Nevers. It's going to be chopping and changing as far as the order is concerned, one suspects, in the early stages of this race, because these grid positions were settled in Superpole, and now, of course, in race conditions, we've got dry weather, so that really could throw things into some surprise early on.
Yeah, and just saw Barrier being rolled off the grid there as well, so he's going to start from pit lane. Hopefully not too much of an issue there for the French rider at his home round.
Is he maybe taking a gamble on tyre choice or something like that as an option?
You'd be surprised if everyone's not out there on the slick tyres. We haven't been able to see any of the tyres there, and still waiting for the Pirelli tyre sheet, but for all these riders you would expect with the conditions they have right now that they'll be out there on slick tyres.
But what kind of option do they have as far as different compounds of tyres? Is there a softer option that might be better in these conditions?
Yeah, there's different compounds you can use. There's different options from Pirelli. The big thing is that you just want to be able to have the best grip level that you're able to have in these temperatures as well, because the issue for a lot of the time is actually just temperature related. It's trying to get that temperature into the tyres, but also the chemical reaction that you get from the asphalt and the rubber, and that bond that occurs, it can only happen at certain temperatures from that as well. So that's why it's really important to be able to use the right tyre in the right conditions so that you don't run the risk of cold tearing or any other issues with the tyres.
Track temperature is 21.7 degrees as things stand, according to our race statistics. And, well, one suspects that if there are going to be any dramas for riders, it could well be early on. One of those pinch points, down into turn number 5, when they very often try to go 3 or 4 abreast on the opening lap. That could be where a couple of riders get into difficulties if they run in offline.
Yeah, 5's the real talking point, but also around this lap it's going to be quite treacherous offline, because even though we are going to have a lot of dry sections all the way around this racetrack, there are going to be points off the racing line where the 300s, the super sport bikes, haven't been, that are going to be quite wet. Just seeing on the timing screens that it was a tyre pressure related issue for Sylvain Barrier, so he would have been checked and been below the lowest the tyre pressure allowed, and that's why he has to start from pit lane.
Yes, you were saying previously, Steve, about different areas of the circuit and how there might still be some damper patches hanging around. Actually, you can see it from a couple of the shots that we've seen during that warm-up lap, that some areas, those darker patches, those are still damp out there. So riders are going to have to be careful when they try and make overtaking manoeuvres in the early stages here in Magny-Cours. Settling in then, onto the grid for race number 1 of what could be a title decider in 2019.
Yeah, and just got the sheet from Pirelli. It looks like Eugene Laverty and Del Bianco have gone for the SCX, the Superpole rear tyre, so a shorter life rear tyre, and should offer them a lot more grip in the early stages of this race. Really crucial around this Magny-Cours circuit. Everyone else seems to be on pretty much the same combinations, front and rear.
Sylvain Barrier joins the grid, and now 20 riders are in position for race number 1 of what could be a pivotal weekend in 2019 for Jonathan Rea in pursuit of his 5th world title. He starts from pole position, Bautista from 14th. Lights out, great start from Rea. Van der Mark under some pressure early on from Leon Haslam, who cuts to the inside. Ruben Rinaldi is around him. Great start from Alex Lowe's as well, finding his way up through the field and challenging for 4th position. He gets hemmed in somewhat. They 3 abreast. Sykes goes all the way around the outside, challenging for 4th place. Battles going on further down the field. Rinaldi gets pushed backwards. Chianari gets shoved 3 or 4 places backwards. Bautista hasn't made the expected early progress so far. Van der Mark goes side by side with Jonathan Rea as they head down into the Adelaide hairpin for the first time. Further back, it's 4 abreast. Bautista on the outside. Rea defends against Van der Mark. Van der Mark tries to go the long way round. Haslam has the cut back. All 3 are in the mix in the early stages here. Jonathan Rea tries to see off the challenge of Michael Van der Mark. It wouldn't do him too many favours if Van der Mark could get to the front, but Leon Haslam might be able to do him a couple of favours if he can get to challenge Michael Van der Mark here. Tom Sykes now scything down the inside line of Haslam to take 3rd position away, and Alex Lowe's brilliant start there up to P5.
Yeah, Lowe's with a great start, but it was his teammate Michael Van der Mark who was getting really aggressive on the run down into turn 5 there. Himself and Jonathan Rea making contact just with Van der Mark on the outside, but it left himself open there for a move from Tom Sykes. So Sykes really impressive on that opening lap, but contact already at the front. So all these riders, the gloves are off, they're doing what they can to make sure to get to the front.
Side by side now for 3rd position. Michael Van der Mark hasn't got off to the best of starts in this race. He's been beaten up by Tom Sykes, and now he's getting beaten up by Leon Haslam. Still side by side between the 2 of them. Van der Mark has the inside line. Haslam's going to go for the cutback, run down towards the chicane at the end of this lap. Alvaro Bautista is up inside the top 10 positions. The top 8, though, have somewhat broken away from Bautista, who's got over a second now to try and recover as Davies gets down the inside. He's making progress too. That's now 4th position for him.
Yeah, Davis with a couple of good moves there in the last couple of corners, but also further back that group.
Sykes for the lead. Sykes for the lead on Jonathan Rea. Cuts through the Grand Courbe and off Estoril, but it's Jonathan Rea who has the better momentum coming off that turn. Sykes ducks back into the slipstream. He's going to try and run down the inside line, perhaps into the Adelaide hairpin. He does so. Rea is earlier on the brakes, and Sykes has come through. Great move from Tom Sykes. Is he going to go too deep though? Rea has the cutback, side by side once again as they come off turn 5. Great racing in race number 1 here in Magny-Cours. The elbows are out. Rea and Sykes pushing one another, forcing one another around. Sykes is muscled aside in the end. Jonathan Rea hits the front. Sykes goes for a dive once again to hit the front. This is beautiful from these 2 former teammates, of course, both former world champions. Rea looking to make it 5 this weekend, but Tom Sykes doing a real giant killing mission in the early stages here on the BMW.
Yeah, we saw Sykes and Rea really close combat with each other at Donington Park. Contact between them at times as well, and this time we didn't see Sykes back out of them. Really good moves from Sykes to be able to get himself to the front.
Quiet start to this race from Alvaro Bautista, but no such problems for Toprak Razgatlioglu, as challenging for 2nd place now Chaz Davies tries to move Jonathan Rea out of the way, and Rea is pushed down to 3rd position. Razgatlioglu, I was talking about, has moved his way up to 5th. He's now going to challenge down the inside of Michael Van der Mark and gets 4th place away. So Van der Mark going backwards, Jonathan Rea starting to go backwards as well now.
Yeah, this is the chance for Toprak to be able to claim that first race victory as well, because he's looking really strong on that Kawasaki here in the early stages of this race. Sykes is going to be vulnerable, particularly to Chaz Davis on the run down in towards 5, because Davis is looking really strong as well in these early stages. He's been able to come through the field with a couple of nice clean moves on different people. We saw him get down the inside of Alex Lowe's into the final couple of corners. We saw him make his move on the run into turn 1 as well, so he's feeling pretty good in these early stages of the race.
Jonathan Rea now starting to recover as they come down the longest straight on this circuit. Chaz Davies cuts into the inside on Tom Sykes, who wants to get the leg out, wants to go toe-to-toe, but doesn't quite have the pace at top-end speed. Davies hits the front then. Sykes is straight back behind him. Jonathan Rea is still close to the tail of the two riders in front of him, but Razgatlioglu looking menacing now.
Yeah, Toprak's going to put himself into a position to try and make the move on Jonathan Rea as well, because he wants to beat Rea. He wants to try and get himself a race victory finally at this stage. Lots of podiums for Toprak so far this season. Big moment for Chaz Davies on the exit of 180 there. Big slide that's going to compress that lead group once again.
Rea comes through on the inside then of Davies, who's tumbling backwards. His momentum killed. What damage limitation effort can he put in? He's managed to defend fourth position for now. Razgatlioglu gains another place. What a stunning start to this race for him. Up from 16th position to P3. Davies on the inside. Van der Mark has gone way too wide there, and Leon Haslam cuts through for fifth position. Plenty of change at the front of the field, but not for Alvaro Bautista further back. The gap between him and the group in front gradually increasing. 2 seconds now from Bautista in 9th to Baz in 8th.
Yeah, and what you're seeing is the riders that haven't had enough track time here, the riders that over the course this weekend they've only had 20 minutes in free practice 3 to try and get their settings, to try and get their riding styles ready. Suddenly you jump straight into a race and you have to try and be on that limit. That's where you can make these kind of mistakes. That's where the team can go a little bit wrong with the setup of the bike as well. And that's why it's so difficult to try and just jump straight into this kind of situation.
Best opening laps of this 2019 season so far, and Jonathan Rea is set to ensure that the action continues as once again the rivalry is renewed between himself and old rival Tom Sykes. But here goes Toprak Razgatlioglu down the inside of Jonathan Rea for second position. Rea is going to get hung up to dry here. Davies is going to get the better run off turn number 5. Can't make it stick, so off the Adelaide hairpin it's Sykes who leads Razgatlioglu. Davies trying to be bold on Rea here for third position. Not for now at least. Rea holds P3.
Yeah, we rode on board with Jonathan Rea there on that run down in towards the Adelaide hairpin as well. He wasn't close enough to try and make the moves on Tom Sykes, but Toprak Razgatlioglu will be, because he exits turn 3 really strong compared to Jonathan Rea. So if he's not through into the lead by the end of this lap, he will be on the run into turn 5.
Here he goes on Sykes, eyeing up a manoeuvre already. Sykes seems to be bottling up the pack behind him for the moment at least. Bit of a gap to Michael van der Mark emerging now, who sits in P5, and then it's Leon Haslam. Davies down the inside of Rea. That was opportunistic, while the riders in front of him got held back through that turn. Then Jonathan Rea slips down to fourth position, but he's still well and truly where he needs to be in the context of the championship, with Bautista all the way down in P9. Oh, Davies is down! Chaz Davies tumbles down as he challenges on the inside of Razgatlioglu for second position. Davies has binned it from a provisional podium place.
I was just going to say, how good is it to see Chaz Davies running at the front, being aggressive like that, but he just came from too far back to try and make that move on Toprak Razgatlioglu.
And Tom Sykes has now got a bit of daylight this time around, heading towards the Adelaide hairpin. That's exactly what he needs, because this is the area on the circuit where his power deficit versus the Kawasaki, or say the Ducati, is its most pronounced. Razgatlioglu is a bit under pressure now, having been somewhat beaten up by Davies. We'll see it again here.
Yeah, you see from Davies, just comes from too far back. But the problem with this is, because we've had so little running in the dry conditions, it's easy to just be a little bit less sharp than normal coming into a race, and a little bit looser than normal. You can see there from Davies just how far back he comes back from. Toprak does well just to stay upright and stay in this race, but unfortunate for Davies as well, because a really good start to the race and he'd been nice and aggressive in those early laps, able to get his way through the field. So a shame for Davies, but at least Toprak's still been able to live to fight another day in this, but he's relegated down to fourth spot.
Potentially a little bit damp offline as well for Davies trying to make that move.
Well, it looks like it's probably just misjudging your braking point by only a couple of meters, but because it's damp, because there isn't any rubber down, it's just a lot harder to get that bike stopped. So unfortunate for Davies, probably just a little bit too aggressive with the conditions that as they are right now. He's eager to try and get another race win after what's been a very difficult start to the season for him. So you can understand why Davies is trying to make those moves, but just coming from too far back on Toprak.
Heading in towards lap number 6, and it's Loris Baz who is marching on in this one. A 1:39.393 last lap around, a new fastest lap of the race. That fastest lap continues to tumble, of course, with each passing lap. The track conditions improve, the rubber is laid, and the pace hops up. Tom Sykes this time around will be under pressure from Jonathan Rea, who's starting to find his groove in this race after a slower start, and Michael van der Mark likewise. He's coming back at them now. Rea will surely have a look at a move before the Adelaide hairpin here, because he is as close to the back of Sykes as you like. Sykes tries to move him up to the outside line. The pair still side by side. Van der Mark getting into the mix as well, almost 3 abreast. Ray's going to try and go the long way round, square off turn 5 and get up the inside of Tom Sykes. Sykes squirms on the exit of that Adelaide hairpin. Ray not quite close enough. Once again, they're going to go bar to bar, and Jonathan Ray is going to be held back into second position. Great defensive riding from Tom Sykes, but Jonathan Ray isn't giving an inch either in his fight for top spot.
Yeah, how good is this to see from Tom Sykes as well? In the past, he's been criticised for not being willing to really fight, get the gloves off and try and take on anyone around them, but you saw there when we rode on board with Jonathan Ray how much respect that Sykes was giving him. He's giving him just enough room on the track for his bike and no more, but he wasn't going to try and leave the doors open at all for him. Good riding from Sykes.
Sykes a little bit offline there, and Jonathan Ray tries to capitalise on it, but he finds himself offline, and Michael van der Mark cuts between 2. This is outstanding racing, the best we've seen in 2019. Magny-Cours certainly providing spectacle here. Van der Mark is the latest who wants to have a go at the tail of Tom Sykes. Will it be a move into that Adelaide hairpin, the most notable overtaking area on this circuit and where Tom Sykes is most exposed? At the moment, he's doing a brilliant job out in front, but Sykes has rarely been able to stay in those podium positions. We'll see it again here, Steve.
Yeah, keep an eye on the number 60. He sees that the door gets open from that slide from Jonathan Ray, and he just makes sure that he barges down there the inside. Good move from Van der Mark, takes no prisoners, and he's able to take that second position.
Aggressive stuff from Michael van der Mark as ever. Will he be able to be as aggressive on Tom Sykes? The pair of them side by side as we come back from the replay, heading down towards the Adelaide hairpin then, with Sykes moved away by Michael van der Mark, and here comes Jonathan Ray around the outside of the pair of them side by side. Sykes duffed up on either side. Ray's going to go in way too deep here. Van der Mark gets it squared off. Sykes comes through as well. Razgatlioglu comes past. A rare error from Jonathan Ray, who sees himself relegated down to 4th position and into the path of Loris Baz.
Yeah, Ray's really ragged at this stage of the race. He's having to ride like that to try and stay at the front of this group. The big thing for Jonathan Ray is, don't think so much about this group. Think about the championship. Bautista's down there in 8th spot. You don't need to have to get to the front of this group and stay there the whole way through this race. You just need to try and wait for the group to splinter a little bit. You need to try and just keep yourself calm. Make sure that you're not taking any undue risks. We saw Jonathan Ray have a crash in yesterday's free practice session just at this point on the lap. And he also had another big moment at Estoril as well at turn 3. You don't want to have any of those moments when you're trying to win that World Championship.
Michael van der Mark leads us then, ahead of Tom Sykes in 2nd position, Toprak Razgatlioglu 3rd, and Jonathan Ray in 4th position. Check as far as the championship is concerned. Bautista all the way down in 8th position. He is finding pace now. He's into the low 1:39s, as are the leaders, but he's not making ground hand over fist as he has in previous rounds whilst recovering, and he's still got a lot of positions to make up. There is Bautista coming onto the straight almost as the others are halfway down it. He's got ground to make up on Alex Lowe's, who at the moment is at the back of that lead group of riders, all separated by just 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's been quiet so far from Lowe's at the back of that group, but the other Yamahas have certainly been making plenty of noise. Van der Mark getting himself into the lead. Loris Baz inside the top 5s and looking good as well.
Bautista on his lonesome for the moment. The fight is further up the field. Ray recovering on the inside here of Tom Sykes. He's going to stand him up going into turn number 5. That was the definition of a block pass, but it's allowed Toprak Razgatlioglu to get through as well. So Ray up to 2nd, Razgatlioglu up to 3rd. Tom Sykes outfought somewhat, pushed down to 4th position, and Loris Baz has got the best view of all as Razgatlioglu is going to think about an unconventional passing place on Jonathan Ray there. Ray holds it out around the outside line, but you can see that Razgatlioglu is racy at this stage.
Yeah, mistake from Jonathan Ray, ran across the inside curbs, and that's what meant that he lost his momentum and opens the door there for Toprak to try and make a move, but Jonathan able to hold him at bay. But Toprak, the only rider in this group that hasn't won a race, is the number 54 in 3rd position. He really wants to break his duck with the Pichetti team, and this could be his opportunity.
Baz down the inside of Sykes, and through he comes for 4th position. So now he can start to get a groove on, because the race leader is pulling away. Michael van der Mark is checking out here. Jonathan Ray's errors and the challenge of Razgatlioglu behind him, pushing him back. Sykes dives down the inside of Baz. Baz with the cutback has the better entry through the Lycée and through the final chicane, and Loris Baz has got that job done now on Tom Sykes, but Sykes being as combative as ever, trying to keep up there and with this lead group on the BMW.
Yeah, Sykes has no choice, but the problem for him is that now he's just going to fall further and further down this group, and he's going to lose touch with them as well, because this is what we've seen already in recent rounds with the BMW. If you think back to Portimao, Sykes was actually quite strong pace-wise, but once we got into the race, really struggled to try and be able to battle with all of these guys. That's what's happening now in this race as well. That's why we're starting to see this group stretch right out as well.
Razgatlioglu having some difficulties there under braking. Baz not quite close enough to take advantage of it for the moment as they come off the Adelaide hairpin once again. Michael van der Mark really putting the hammer down over a second clear of Jonathan Rea. Rea will come under pressure from Razgatlioglu. Baz is pulling Sykes with him. Haslam and Lowe still in touch. A group of 7 riders still separated by less than 3 seconds.
Yeah, a group of 7 riders, but there's only one out in front right now. Van der Mark is stretching away. Look at that gap between Van der Mark and Jonathan Rea, first and second. The number 60 is doing a really good job here of just getting his head down, trying to time trial his way away from this pack.
And guess who's joining in at the back of this group now? Alvaro Bautista. That gap between himself and Alex Lowe at one stage was 2 seconds. He's halved it. In fact, he's more than halved it. Alvaro Bautista is on race-leading pace, but he's not in the position he wants to be to try and capitalise on it. And very soon, Van der Mark will be too far gone for Bautista to even think about winning this one. Jonathan Rea, though, may be within reach if Bautista can fight his way quickly through.
Unfortunately, for the rest of this field, Van der Mark could be getting himself just out of reach as well. You can see how hard he's pushing there, but another fastest lap. That's 2 laps in a row where he's had the fastest lap. Loris Baz really fast this lap as well. Immediately goes just a little bit faster than Van der Mark. So the 2 Yamahas really fast right now at this stage of the race. You can see a 38.3 from Baz. That's good pace because the fastest lap we've ever seen here is a 37.1, and that was in much better conditions last year for Jonathan Rea than what we have today.
Coming off Estoril, Razgatlioglu made a slight error. Loris Baz is tucked in on his tail. Will look for a move into turn number 5. Razgatlioglu close to the tail of Rea as well. The trio almost 3 abreast. Haslam getting down the inside of Sykes further back. So Leon Haslam, the cork is out of the bottle now as far as Sykes is concerned. He's pushed down to 6th position, continuing his tumble through the order. But what a great start to this race Tom Sykes provided us with. Plenty of action in the early laps. Not even halfway through yet. It's been a stunning one.
Yeah, been a great start to the race. Now for all these riders, it's all about trying to find your rhythm and make sure that you're able to try and close down the gap to the guys in front, because there's podiums and race wins to be fought for here, and anyone in this leading group will still feel they have a good chance.
Baz certainly, after his new fastest lap of the race last time around, as you said, Steve, a great effort from Loris Baz, who currently sits in 4th position, looking to get onto the podium for the first time in 2019. Further back, Leon Haslam. Then it's Alvaro Bautista in 8th position, attempting to close down Alex Lowe. He's not done much about that gap on this lap, and Bautista really needs the others in front of him to be fighting as they were a couple of laps ago, because that's his best chance of pulling them in.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're not going to see too much of that scrapping now, because we are starting to stretch out this group. The reason for that is the riders are now getting more and more comfortable out there on the racetrack. They're getting more and more knowledge about where they can go, how aggressive they can be, and just where they're able to attack. And you can see there are still going to be some mistakes. Leon has them there, just dropping down in front of Alvaro Bautista now. So Sykes up to 5th, Lowe's up to 6th. So you can still make those mistakes, but it's all about trying to make sure that you're able to punish the riders around you. If you look at Toprak through this section on the 54, he needs to be as close as possible to Jonathan Rea to see if he can try and make a move down in towards turn 5. But that's where we've seen Razgatlioglu struggle to get the bike stopped at times in this race.
Razgatlioglu diving for the inside on Jonathan Rea into the Adelaide hairpin. Rea will try and make the cut back, but Razgatlioglu, the Turkish rider, has got the job done, through for P2. Now has he got the pace to unleash against Michael van der Mark, or can Rea repay the compliment?
Yeah, the gap to van der Mark, 1.6 seconds. We've got 11 laps, so second half of this race. Can Razgatlioglu get his head down and try and close that gap to the race leader?
What about Loris Baz in his pursuit of a podium position? There is the live championship along the bottom of your screen. Jonathan Rea would gain another 7 points over Alvaro Bautista, who did manage to dispatch Leon Haslam. That was for P7. Haslam losing 3 places then as a result of his error. Bautista's next targets will be Alex Lowe and Tom Sykes, but those two occupying 5th and 6th positions, and Bautista clearly wants to be in the mix with the likes of Razgatlioglu and Rea in the context of the championship. Bautista not where he wants to be in terms of trying to strike to gain points on Rea here, and Rea is looking racy enough to take the fight back to Razgatlioglu once again.
Yeah, Jonathan Rea just trying to make sure that he's able to build himself up through the race. You don't want to try and be too aggressive too soon, but now you've got enough data points through the opening 12 laps of the race to really understand where you can be out in this racetrack. So that's why you're starting to see riders get faster and faster. Toprak last time around, a third of a second faster than Van der Mark. The gap down to 1.2 seconds now.
Another new fastest lap of the race as the pace gradually ramps up here in Magny-Cours. A 1:37.970 for Razgatlioglu, but he's going to come under pressure here from Jonathan Rea. Rea looking to recover second position. These two, not the first time the two Kawasaki riders have gone toe-to-toe. Razgatlioglu sticks it out around the inside line. How on earth did he manage to make the inside line of turn number 5? He missed the apex though, and Rea comes through for P2 once again, but Razgatlioglu is literally on the edge.
Yeah, Toprak always box office, always worth watching whenever he's out on the racetrack, and he's here fighting for these podium spots. He really wants this today. He really wants to be able to leave here in Magny-Cours with another strong result. And for Razgatlioglu on the 54, he certainly thinks that Jonathan Rea is there for the taking, but it's a big task to try and do that. Jonathan Rea, even with the World Championship situation as it is, whenever you're racing with one eye in that championship, Rea is still always aggressive, still always trying to get the best result that he can. He'll think about the championship, but he's really thinking about trying to just make sure he beats everyone around him as well.
Alvaro Bautista still edging onto the tail of Alex Lowes. The gap has stabilised between those three though by and large, and Lowes defending 6th position, but 5 seconds back now from the leader. So as you said, Steve, he and Tom Sykes dropping away from this lead group. Still only 2 seconds covering the top 4 though. This is good pace from Loris Baz, who's stuck with him.
Yeah, this is Toprak down into the Adelaide hairpin, and he wasn't afraid of still trying to stick that bike down the inside and try and hold on to that line, but you'll see for the Pachetti team, Keenan Safoglu, multiple world champion on the right hand side, crew chief Phil Marin and Manuel Pachetti down there, the team manager, and they'll be looking at Toprak and just thinking, what could this boy do? Because he's always rides like that. He always tries to be as aggressive as possible, but this is a real opportunity for Toprak, and he's going to do what he can to try and grab it with both hands.
The first thing to do is going to be to stay on the bike, and there were a couple of nearly moments last lap around, and Razgatlioglu has now got to calm himself and collect his thoughts to go off in pursuit of Jonathan Rea. It's not easy to take the fight to a man like Jonathan Rea, a multi-times world champion, of course, for a reason, and Razgatlioglu, well, he hasn't been able to beat him yet for top spot. Could today be the day?
Yeah, for Razgatlioglu, he's also going to have to beat Van der Mark. The one thing we've always seen from Van der Mark is when he's got a sniff of something, he's very hard to beat, and he's got a real sniff of a race victory here as we move into the final third of this race. And Van der Mark, we saw it time and time again in the past. Think back to his first wins in WorldSBK at Donington Park last year. That was where he went toe-to-toe with Jonathan Rea, and he didn't blink. For Michael Van der Mark, he's just going to make sure he's able to keep those consistent 1:38. He'll ride with his pitboard in mind to Jonathan Rea. You can see how hard Rea was pressing there. Looked like he just slipped off on one side of the bike there against Jonathan Rea, still riding really aggressively through these sections.
Looking comfortable at the moment in the context of the championship. The one thing he can't afford, of course, would be an incident in the remaining 8 laps or so of this Magny-Cours circuit. It's Michael Van der Mark who leads the way by 1.2 seconds over Jonathan Rea in second. Then it's Razgatlioglu, then it's Baz. Bautista all the way down in 7th position. Hasn't really made the impact that many might have expected.
No, but for Bautista, this is a brand new track. This is a track he hasn't got a lot of experience on in the dry, only the free practice 3 session this morning. So he's making the kind of progress you kind of would have expected from him. It's difficult at a track like this to really understand where you're able to race, particularly when we've had these changeable conditions.
Seeing the riders right the way through to the end of the top 15. Real disappointment for Michael Ruben Rinaldi, because having started so high on the grid, his best ever grid position, 4th place, he's now back with Del Bianco, Barrier and Chianari separated by 2 seconds for the last of the point scoring position. So bit of a disaster for Rinaldi.
Yeah, when you've had so little dry weather running, to try and find a setting to use in the dry conditions, a real challenge. And obviously for Rinaldi and the Barney bike, it's just been a bridge too far for them. For these guys out in front, they're the guys that all the way through the season have been strong. They've got a base setting that works. That's why they're able to get themselves to the front whenever there's limited running.
Decent effort from Sandro Cortese as well to come up from 17th position on the grid. He's now up to 11th and closing in on teammate Marco Melandri for a place in the top 10. But star of the show as far as further down the order is concerned, Leon Camia up in P9. That's a really strong effort from the Honda man.
Yeah, Camia doing a pretty solid job there just in front of Marco Melandri and Sandro Cortese, and riders that we've seen struggle at times, like Melandri, Eugene Laverty's behind them as well. So Cammy are doing a good job to jump straight in at that sort of level here in his comeback to WorldSBK.
New fastest lap of the race from Jonathan Rea, a 1:37.957. He's starting to close ever so slightly on Michael van der Mark. Are we expecting a duel between these two who've been the pace setters all weekend here in Magny-Cours? Rea's got so much ground still to cover. It only takes one mistake though from van der Mark and Rea will be snapping at his heels.
Yeah, but it's what does Jonathan Rea have to gain by trying to ride aggressively to close down this gap to Michael van der Mark? You can see van der Mark squirming on the way into the Adelaide hairpin, but for Jonathan Rea, the only thing that really matters is the gap back to Alvaro Bautista. Bautista's in 7th spot. Do you want to try and claim those extra 5 points for winning this race? Is it worth the risk compared to the championship standings? As it is right now, Jonathan Rea would extend his championship lead to 102 points. He needs to leave Magny-Cours 125 points clear of Bautista. So are you willing to try and be that aggressive?
Jonathan Rea then leads it by 6 seconds as far as his duel with Alvaro Bautista is concerned. Bautista is now coming up onto the tail of Alex Lowes. He is less than half a second behind, and our next overtake could well be Bautista on Lowes for 6th position. Sykes is ahead of the pair of them. You can see him isolated here in P5. The gaps have steadied somewhat in the top 4 positions, but here comes Bautista roaring into your shot on the tail of Alex Lowes. The race for 6th position is hotting up between these two.
Yeah, difficult race so far for Alex Lowes here as we move into the final quarter of this race. But he's going to be under attack from Bautista, who has a big moment on the run down in towards that right-hander at the end of the lap. And you can see how hard Bautista's having to push down into that corner there. You're braking on the angle. You're trying to get the bike from one side of the track to the other. It's very easy to just carry a little bit too much momentum, like what we saw from Bautista there.
So Bautista back down to more than a second in arrears of Alex Lowes. See it again.
You can see here as he comes across the racetrack, with the way that Bautista rides that bike, he likes to do most of his braking upright. He likes to do his braking in that straight line. It can be more difficult with the way that he sets that bike up, with the way that he rides that bike, to try and be aggressive like that as you come across the racetrack. But Bautista, he's going to live to fight another day, and he'll certainly make another attack on Alex Lowes. The gap between them right now, it's up to just over a second.
So Bautista already setting about trying to recover against Lowes for 6th position. Lowes certainly looks vulnerable, but Bautista is not exactly in a starring role as far as this race is concerned. He's not got the pace to really hunt down the riders in front of him, as we saw him carving his way through the field in Portimao last time out, remember. Michael van der Mark, he lost a fraction to Jonathan Rea last lap around, but the gap is still a second between the top two. What is closing down is the gap between Rea and Razgatlioglu. The Turkish rider might have a look at Rea in the latter stages here.
Yeah, for Toprak, it's going to be about trying to get himself on the exit of turn 3, be really strong through there, down the straight, into turn 5, see if you're able to make that block pass.
So Razgatlioglu with an eye on the prize as far as Rea's concerned in P2. You fancy that Razgatlioglu would be more keen to try and hunt down van der Mark than necessarily Jonathan Rea, although think about how close Rea got to the tail of Bautista at the end of race 2 in Portimao.
Yeah, Rea's not going to be afraid of trying to close that gap down to van der Mark. The biggest problem is if anything does go wrong, then suddenly that approach can be called into question. It's interesting, just look at Toprak's bike as well. On the right-hand side of the fairing, just where it says Turkish, there's big marks on it from that slash with Davis.
Problems for Leon Haslam, and what a disaster that is for him. He'd already been relegated down to 8th position, and he's gone through the final chicane, which is an unusual place for the man to have gone. We're going to see it again here.
You can see with Haslam, just that bike gets unsettled coming across those curbs, and then he's just going to be put out over the top. But
bucking Bronco, and Haslam is sent over the front of the bike. Dramatic incident there coming off the final turn.
Yeah, and for Haslam, at least able to walk away from that, because we've seen crashes that you come down very heavily on the exit of that chicane there. But unfortunately for Haslam, because he's been running inside that leading group in the early stages and just behind Lowes and Bautista at the time of that crash. But it does elevate Leon Cammier up into 8th spot on his return to WorldSBK as well.
Alvaro Bautista now challenging Alex Lowes. He made a mistake last time, he had a go at him. This time, no mistake. Straight forward from Bautista, straight through up into 6th position. Less than 5 laps to go. Can Bautista make any further progress in this race? Alvaro Bautista then through, and 1 further position gained. But Tom Sykes is the next target, and he's over a second up the road.
Yeah, for Bautista, that could be the end of his progress, because we've seen all the way through this race that he's got decent pace, but nothing that's actually exceeding what the other riders have. You can see Jonathan Rea with a new fastest lap of the race, 37.7. We're half a second off lap record pace, so it shows just how quick these riders have got themselves geared up here in Magny-Cours. You can see how hard Jonathan Rea is pressing there as he's leaned all the way across that bike. He's not taking anything off right now. He really wants to win this race. He's not thinking about the championship at all. He's only thinking about a race win.
Jonathan Rea is coming in for a sprint finish in this 21-lap race here in Magny-Cours. As the gap comes down between the top two, we're in for a grandstand finale. Michael van der Mark leads it, but his advantage that stood at more than a second for the majority of this race is now down to just 6/10. Jonathan Rea has been fighting back on him. He's not pulled Razgatlioglu with him, so Razgatlioglu, the best he can do by the looks of it at this stage is to take third position. Loris Baz is 5 seconds further back down the road in P4, best of the rest, and then it's Tom Sykes, an isolated P5, trying to defend in the latter stages, perhaps against Bautista, although at the moment Bautista, as you said, Steve, not making a lot of progress against Tom Sykes, and that could well be a glass ceiling for Bautista at P6, so it could be 5 points extra gained for Jonathan Rea if he can find his way past Michael van der Mark.
Yeah, for van der Mark, slightly different front tyre to Jonathan Rea, the same compound but a different construction. So with the development front tyre, maybe just it's just running a little bit differently for van der Mark compared to Jonathan Rea. We've seen at times through the course of this season that the choice of those front tyres can be just as critical as anything else. It's about giving the rider that right confident feeling whenever they get on the brakes, that planted feeling. And for Jonathan Rea, he's clearly got that right now, whereas Michael van der Mark, he's on that limit. He's trying to hold on for dear life right now, because Jonathan Rea has closed that gap all the way down. It's 0.2 of a second, and Rea, he hasn't been able to get close enough to try and be aggressive on van der Mark on the run into the Adelaide hairpin so far in this race, and that's where the Yamaha has been quite strong. But for Jonathan Rea, it's really a case of trying to see where you're able to make that move as we ride on board with the world champion.
Less than 3 laps to go here in Magny-Cours. Jonathan Rea as close as he's been for several laps to the tail of Michael van der Mark. The gap between them, just a 1/10 of a second, and down goes van der Mark. Van der Mark down from the race lead at the Adelaide hairpin, and Jonathan Rea is gifted the race lead. He put van der Mark under so much pressure, and the Flying Dutchman has gone into the gravel trap at the most dramatic turn of this Magny-Cours circuit.
Van der Mark down and out of the race lead, trying to get himself remounted and get back into this. You can see as he just comes in, the front folds away from underneath him, and for van der Mark, he's trying to push as hard as he can so he can hold on to that race victory. And you can see the reaction from down inside the Yamaha pit box there. They know that that's one that got away. Van der Mark will know that's one that got away, but Jonathan Rea's pressure was absolutely relentless there as well. We saw him close in 10th by 10th and just get closer and closer to Michael van der Mark. For a man that's leading the World Championship, in a position to try and win the World Championship this weekend, Rea wasn't afraid of taking risks to close down that gap to Michael van der Mark as well. But now he's got a gap of about 1.5 seconds to Toprak Razgatlioglu behind them. But the French crowd also has a French rider up there on the podium right now. Loris Baz and Tenkade Yamaha are up in third spot. That's going to be the big battle for the rest of this race. Just at the top of the screen, you can see half a second between Baz and Tom Sykes in that scrap for third.
Tom Sykes has come back into this race really nicely, as you say, Steve. We're on the penultimate lap of the race now, and it's a question as to whether Sykes is closing quickly enough on Baz to get there. There's not much of a difference between the two of them, but it's harder for Tom Sykes to make that pass than it would be perhaps on a different machine, given the top speed deficit of that BMW. We've seen a lot of passes into turn number 5. Harder to make, though, for Sykes.
Well, the one thing for Sykes is that we also saw that his bike is quite strong in that straight line. When we rode on board with Jonathan Rea, even with a slipstream, Jonathan wasn't exactly steaming up to the back of the BMW. He was able to close a little bit, but he wasn't able to make the moves on the straight. So will that make a big difference compared to the Yamaha? It could mean that Sykes is able to be a little bit closer to him on the run down into the braking zones and try and be aggressive.
Goes for a dive bomb from way back on Loris Baz and moves him out of the way. Through he goes for third position. So Tom Sykes, who's been closing down Loris Baz for a place on the podium, breaks the hearts of the French crowd and roars away from Loris Baz to take a place in the top 3. Stunning effort that from Tom Sykes.
How fast does Sykes look as well right now? He's absolutely giving it everything he has. Great move from Sykes. I was saying that at least with that BMW, with the chassis, it gives him that confidence to be able to be aggressive on the braking zones, and that was a really good move. He came from a long way back, but he made it nice and clean to get himself up into the podium spots. We've seen the BMW in the podium places throughout the course this year, but this is a really good performance from Tom Sykes, one lap away from another podium.
Loris Baz will not have seen that coming. That came from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, you have to carry so much more speed than your rivals through the chicanes here to try and set that move up down into the 180 corner, but really good stuff from Sykes to be able to do it. You can see at the front of the field the gap between Ray and Razgatlioglu, that's 0.8 of a second. Last time around, Toprak did take almost half a second out of Jonathan Ray, but with only one lap to go, he's going to run out of time here.
Jonathan Ray then on towards what's going to be a valuable victory in the context of his World Championship challenge. Alvaro Bautista is up to 5th position, promoted of course by incidents in the latter stages of this race. Michael van der Mark looked to have one hand on victory here in Magny-Cours, tumbled away from the race lead. The pressure exerted by Jonathan Ray certainly got to him, and it's Jonathan Ray who looks set to take this win. Razgatlioglu though will keep him under pressure right to the finish.
Yeah, Toprak really is closing right up on Jonathan Ray here, and Toprak's going to have a chance to try and make the move that he's closed up so quickly on Jonathan, and we know that Toprak still chasing that first victory in the class, and you wouldn't be surprised to see him try and make that move, but Jonathan Ray really a lot slower than you would expect at this stage of the race.
Razgatlioglu looking to the inside line on Jonathan Ray. Ray can't risk going toe-to-toe. Razgatlioglu from nowhere hits the front, and Jonathan Ray is relegated down to P2, and Razgatlioglu could be on for his first victory. Surprised to see Jonathan Ray let the lead slip in such a fashion. Ray has now been alerted to the presence of Toprak Razgatlioglu, but what a dramatic race one we've had here in Magny-Cours. Toprak Razgatlioglu takes his first career win, an aggressive manoeuvre in the closing stages of the final lap to get the better of champion-elect Jonathan Ray. Tom Sykes with a great move on Loris Baz comes through for 3rd position, and Alvaro Bautista down in 5th place hemorrhages more ground to Jonathan Ray, whose march towards a 5th world title continues here in France.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what Ray has to say after that, because the amount of time that he gave up to Toprak in that last lap, a full second. Be interesting to see exactly what happened there, but Toprak, when the opportunity presented itself, he made sure he was making that move. The first ever Turkish winner in WorldSBK. He's done something that not even Kenan Safoglu could do, and you can see well, you might as well take your hand away, Toprak, so you can see where you're going there, but for Toprak you can see just how much that means for him to have finally broken his duck. You knew that if an opportunity presented itself that he was going to just make sure of making that move. We saw earlier in the season that how much it meant for him to get into the podium places, but to take this race victory really shows just how strong he's been all the way through the season and the progress he's made.
53 World Superbike starts. 4 times this man has finished in 2nd position, and it's clearly an emotional moment for Toprak Razgatlioglu, who's done it in style from 16th position, remember, which is where he qualified. He was promoted up to P15 with Sylvain Barrier relegated to pit lane before the start, but Razgatlioglu carving his way to make 14 positions from down on the 5th row of the grid, comes through to take victory at the death. Jonathan Ray won't be too disappointed in the context of the championship. He's done what he needed to do there, but 5 points rather went begging, because he came into that final lap with an 0.8 of a second advantage over Razgatlioglu.
Yeah, and that's what is difficult to understand about it, because we saw how aggressive Jonathan was being during the course of that race, how little he was thinking in terms of the championship. He was just trying to win that race, and to have given up so much to Toprak in that second half of the lap, because he was 0.8 of a second clear when they came out of the back straight at turn 5. So for Jonathan Ray, it'd be interesting to see whether or not he had some sort of an issue there, but that'll certainly feel like points lost there for Jonathan Ray, even if he's been able to extend his championship lead to an even ton away from Alvaro Bautista.
Bautista down in 5th position, makes up a couple of places as a result of errors elsewhere, but actually Jonathan Ray was the bigger winner, I suppose, from that incident for Michael van der Mark, for example, because Bautista gains a place, but he's further back, so doesn't gain as many points.
Yeah, and for Bautista, top 5, it's about the much damage limitation as he was going to be able to do today. Really a big challenge for him at a track that he doesn't know, and now he's going to be able to try and take those lessons for tomorrow's race and try and at least close down that gap to the leaders, because he needs to have a good day tomorrow, because he needs to leave here within 125 points of Jonathan Rea to still be in title contention. But really at this stage it is just a coronation waiting to happen for Jonathan Rea.
My tagline at the start of today's race was history in the making, and it's an 800th World SBK race, but a first for a Turkish rider to have been won here today by Toprak Razgatlioglu. Great effort from him. Sykes is delighted with a podium, but this is going to be a moment to savour.
Yeah, for Toprak this is absolutely amazing. For Manuel Pachetti that you see there, it's even more important as well. That's a team that's gone through an awful lot over the years, and with Toprak they've been able to win races in the European Superstock 600 class, in the Superstock 1000 class, and now in the World Superbike class as well. Really impressive stuff from Toprak, really impressive stuff from Pachetti to have seen what they've been able to achieve this season.
It really was a situation of he's been knocking on the door. He's been on the podium at least once at every round since Imola, and he's been knocking at the door, but he had to bang it down in the latter stages there against Rea.
Yeah, and exactly what you want to see from Toprak as well, just forcing those moves, making sure he's able to get through and take that race victory. And we saw earlier in the season, if you think back to Misano, when he's in that scrap with Jonathan Rea, he's really thinking about the fact that you don't want to risk contact with a Kawasaki rider, a title contender or anything like that. The more podiums that racked up, the more you get impatient to try and win. That's why it's so important to get across the line like Toprak did there, and he's able to take that race victory.
And will this be a sign of things to come now? Having got the monkey off his back in inverted commas, he doesn't have that pressure of needing to be a race winner for the first time.
Well, Toprak's not the coming man anymore. He's shown all the way through this season just how good he can be, and this is just the latest step in that as well.
Points thrown away for Michael van der Mark from the race lead. Razgatlioglu picks up a big 25. Alex Lowe's all the way down in 6th position. Razgatlioglu, at the moment, looking a potential shoe-in for 3rd in the world.
Well, it's going to be a challenge for Toprak still to do that. There's a lot of races left, and we've seen that over the course of the season so far that it has been so closely matched between the two Paddy Yamahas and Toprak as well. For Leon Haslam, though, that's where it's going to be very difficult for him to try and close back those points to Lowe's, Razgatlioglu and Van der Mark as well.
And bad news for Chaz Davies as well, of course, with his fall, and that leaves Tom Sykes a lot closer to his tail in the series standings in the battle for 7th. That really has been a seesaw affair all season as well.
Yeah, at least for Chaz Davies, he's able to look at today as another one of those races where he was looking strong. He's in that front group, he's challenging for the race victory and just makes a mistake.
Action-packed. Alessandro Del Bianco gets a consolation point further down the order. Michael Ruben Rinaldi promoted to 14th position. That was how things finished in the lower order battle. Melandri eventually getting 8th position, pushing on forward with Cortese dropping behind Laverty. We're watching Loris Baz. He's made his way back to paddock, but unfortunately for him, it's not a podium place here today to celebrate with the French fans. Tom Sykes dive-bombing his way through in sensational fashion into the 180 hairpin.
Yeah, Baz doesn't make a mistake there. Sykes just carries an incredible amount of corner speed down into the 180 and makes that move.
Off the Nürburgring chicane, setting himself up, and at the moment that it happened, I thought this could well end in tears, but Tom Sykes makes sure that it's tears for the French fans, but tears of delight for himself getting on the podium. And here's Alvaro Bautista. Well, a bit of a wry smile, but 5th position is no good for him in terms of the championship.
Yeah, the ship sailed now for the championship for Alvaro Bautista, and just a big task to try and make it up here at Magny-Cours, a track he hadn't been to before, a track with limited running all the way through the weekend, and no real surprise to see that it was a big struggle during that race for Bautista. Recovered well and his pace was okay, but it was no match for this man. Toprak Razgatlioglu, a first-time winner in World SBK.
Toprak Razgatlioglu, finally your first win in World SBK and the first victory for Turkey as well. Congratulations.
I am really happy, and last lap I'm big stress because I coming very fast and I try pass, and after front sliding and I push pick up, and first victory. I am really happy, and I'm crying. And yes, this year my big dream, first win, and now first win, and really happy. And we see next race tomorrow. I don't know, I need dry. And yeah, I'm really happy. Thanks to my team. Today, incredible job. and see you soon. Thank you. Bugün çok mutluyuz. Sıralamamız yağmurda geçti. 16. sıradan kalktık. Yarışı birinci bitirdik. Bu benim için inanılmaz bir yarıştı. Ve ilk birinciliğimizi aldık. Çok mutluyum. İnşallah yarın daha güzel olacak. Thank you.
Man of the moment, Razgatlioglu, first victory of his WorldSBK career, and he had to pass the all-time great to get there. Jonathan Rea held the position, Razgatlioglu held the inside, and through he went.
Yeah, and Rea was really weak through that chicane and into that corner throughout the race. That's where we saw him overtaking quite a lot. You can see there from Jonathan Rea that he tries to answer back. He doesn't concede that position in Toprak. He's trying to make sure he holds on to that race lead. But it was just surprising to see how much time he lost on that final lap relative to Razgatlioglu as well. At least half a second over half a lap there for Rea to have given up. But Toprak just relentless on that final lap, and he got exactly what he deserved and exactly what his season deserves as well. You heard him thanking his team. The steps that they've made this year, working with Phil Marin as his crew chief, he's been able to make a big step forward over the year with his riding style, with how he's worked with the team, and that's the reward for Toprak of all that hard work. Really impressive from the start of the European season onwards, really from Imola onwards. He's been absolutely fantastic.
Disappointment for Michael van der Mark, who eventually gets back up to recover 13th position, but he was looking good for 25 points until this moment here.
Yeah, unfortunate for van der Mark. He was under pressure from Rea. We saw Rea just constantly closing down that gap, closing by a 10th here, a 10th there, and just the pressure that comes from that of seeing your pit board, knowing that it's a rider that's closing up on you all the time. It just means that you're always riding that little bit harder, you're trying your best, and unfortunately for Michael van der Mark, just gets caught out in the run down into the Adelaide hairpin with only a couple of laps to go.
Your podium trio here today, Toprak Razgatlioglu, Jonathan Rea and Tom Sykes. Let's hear from him now.
Tom Sykes, an eventful race one, but again on the podium with the BMW. Congratulations.
Eventful, yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed riding that one. Good start. Settled in nicely, and credit to the whole of the team. We made some small changes to the bike in between the last race and now, and it's just nice, able just to do things a little bit better on the track, and a lot more margin for error. So really enjoyed that race, especially at the beginning, swapping paint with a few guys, and just being in a better position, able to fight. The chassis and the tyre really stayed consistent throughout the race. Surely, it looks like we just need to find a little bit in some areas, but overall, a podium with just the two Kawasaki's in front is really promising here, given that we're only 10 months into the programme. So really, really happy with our efforts, and hopefully we can keep up the pace for tomorrow. Thank you.
The team has made no secret of the fact that they want to be championship contenders next year. They're going in the right direction.
Yeah, they're not giving up an awful lot to anyone else in the grid right now. You saw when we rode on board with Jonathan Rea that it wasn't like it was earlier in the season whenever you saw that Tom Sykes was a sitting duck down the straight, but always looking for a little bit more power, and they'll find that over the winter with that BMW engine, and that bike's just going to get more and more competitive. But really good performance from Tom Sykes. He was aggressive all the way through that race. He wasn't taking no for an answer on an awful lot of occasions, and he was really combative. Good to see from the former world champion.
Fascinated to hear from Jonathan Rea about the last lap action here in Magny-Cours as he concedes top spot, still makes it onto the podium.
Jonathan Rea again on the podium, but what a final lap. Were you expecting this today?
I was expecting a fight because the conditions, no one's really had a chance to work on bike setup, so it was the same for everybody. So I knew that I was a little bit worried in the beginning because the conditions were not perfect, and the first 10 laps was like being in it was like racing with kids. It was completely crazy, but a lot of fun at the same time. But when the race settled down, Mikey done a good rhythm. He went away, and slowly but surely I could catch. Put my head down in the last laps, but I made a big mistake in the last lap. I gave too much opportunity to Toprak to come and make that maneuver. So a little bit frustrated with myself, but also very happy with the result, because to be honest, to throw the cards up in the air and to land on the podium is not bad. But I want to take this chance to congratulate Toprak, because it's his first race win. It's a long time coming. He deserves it, but try to change the order tomorrow for sure. Thank you.
Gracious in defeat as ever from Jonathan Rea. He says he gave up too much time. Is that for us to understand that he eased off on that final lap and didn't realise just how much he'd given away?
Well, he was probably focusing mostly on his pitboard to Van der Mark in front rather than the gaps to Razgatlioglu for most of that race, and probably felt that he had enough in hand on Razgatlioglu, but he never looked over his shoulder, never tried to see where Toprak was relative to him, and maybe just got caught out by that, because with half a lap to go he was comfortably in front, and it was only really whenever we came out from the 180 corner down on the run down in towards the final chicanes that he really became under attack from Razgatlioglu. But mistake there from Jonathan Rea, didn't judge that right, but at least he's still able to extend his championship lead.
Great relationship between Rea and Razgatlioglu, and nice to hear Rea congratulating Razgatlioglu. No doubt about it, he's spot on. It has been a long time coming.
Oh yeah, Toprak's had that race victory coming for at least the last 3 or 4 rounds. He's been really strong all the way through the summer here in WorldSBK, and any time that he was going to take that race victory, a bit like what Michael van der Mark at Donington Park when he was able to beat Jonathan Rea, anytime that he was going to take that race victory, it wasn't going to come as a surprise, and Toprak taking this one really comes as no surprise. As I said, halfway through the race, or at the start of the race, this is a real opportunity for Toprak because of the way that everything was sort of falling into place during the course of that race, and he was perfect in trying to take advantage of it.
And also, to be perfectly honest, there might have been a time when Razgatlioglu passing Rea in the context of a championship might have been frowned upon, at least from the Kawasaki side of things. Razgatlioglu expected to be on the move for 2020, and there was no need for him to be too generous to Jonathan Rea in that.
Yeah, and the one thing about that as well is whether or not his contract's sorted or not, he's had enough battles with Rea that he just wanted to beat him, and you got to make sure you do that, and then you got to make sure that you enjoy this moment as well for Razgatlioglu, because these moments don't happen too often in your career, and for Toprak it's been a while between race victories, but he'll certainly be out to enjoy this one because very well deserved for him and also for the Pacetti team. It'd be really interesting to see just the big smile that Manuel Pacetti has in this podium as well.
Massive moment for the team, as you say, and we wait to find out who's going to be on that bike for 2020. Doesn't look as though it's going to be Razgatlioglu, but he will certainly be giving the team a bit of a parting gift with a race victory here today.
Yeah, and absolutely fitting as well, given that he's come all the way through the ranks with that team as well. Stock 600, Stock 1000, and then into the Superbike class as well.
Jonathan Rea receives second place. He has been beaten on a few occasions, but he hasn't been out of the top 2 since Misano back at round number 7. So Rea keeping up that consistency that's been critical as he defends his title. Celebrations then for Razgatlioglu. It doesn't look like that quite went to plan, does it?
I tell you what, I wonder whose head that landed on.
Oh dear, thankfully he's better at throwing it down the inside than he was at throwing those flowers away. Celebrations for Manuel Pacetti then. And a massive moment for the team. Razgatlioglu coming out on top for the first time ahead of Jonathan Rea and Tom Sykes. A rare opportunity to listen to the Turkish national anthem. And the team winning national anthem. Japanese national anthem there for our winning manufacturer. Toprak Razgatlioglu on top then, ahead of Jonathan Rea and Tom Sykes. And the great news, we're going to do it all over again here tomorrow, but Toprak's going to have to work his way through the field again.
Yeah, for Toprak in that Super Pole race, it's to try and get yourself through the field and give yourself a chance of a good grid position for race 2 tomorrow afternoon as well. but just try and enjoy the moment now as much as anything else for Razgatlioglu, because he's really deserved that. He's earned that over the course of what he's done through the season.
And the way he did it was fitting. The number of times he's fought his way through the field, I wouldn't have had him win his first race in any other way.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen it where Toprak's always combative. He's always trying to make the moves. He's always trying to get himself to the front. And once again, he's able to do that today.
Only 8 races now remain in 2019, and it's a long winter, so don't miss a moment. 2 World Superbike races tomorrow from Magny-Cours. The Tissot Superpole race with an 11 AM start local time, and tune in again at 2 PM for race 2. Will the world title be wrapped up here in France? An historic race for WorldSBK, specifically for Toprak Razgatlioglu, our first Turkish winner. He's not used to trophies, so he's getting them muddled up there. Was quite an entertaining podium, actually, between the flower larks and his celebrations. And quite rightly so, an emotional Toprak Razgatlioglu. Saw him in tears on his way round after his first victory. Jonathan Rea and Tom Sykes, both used to being on the podium. That's podium number 160 by my reckoning for Jonathan Rea. Tom Sykes gets 3rd place. That's number 112 for him. But it's the other end of the scale, of course, for Razgatlioglu. Disappointment for Loris Baz. He looked set to take 3rd position after Michael van der Mark's fall, only for Tom Sykes to fight his way through superbly to P3. Decent recovery from Alvaro Bautista, but he didn't have front-running pace. He has to content himself with 5th position in the end. Alex Lowe's in 6th. Great return to WorldSBK for Leon Camia. Honda couldn't have asked for any more than that, certainly putting himself in the shop window as far as 2020 is concerned. And then it's Marco Melandri ahead of the likes of Laverty and also Sandro Cortese. Retiring from the race, Leon Haslam, that does his chances of a world number 3 ranking no good whatsoever. Chaz Davies also going down. Tom Sykes closes on him for 7th in the world. Razgatlioglu makes up 2 positions. Van der Mark recovering to pick up a couple, but nothing like what he would have scored for a race victory, of course. And Razgatlioglu therefore leapfrogs him into 4th position. He also moves past Leon Haslam here today. Haslam pushed down to 6th. This was the day when he was on the front row of the grid and looking set to try and challenge to move into the top 3. He's ended up down in 6th. Not the result that he would have wanted whatsoever. Independent Riders Championship, and it goes without saying that 25 big points being picked up by Razgatlioglu put him almost without reach now of Marco Melandri, who is 87 points back. Still gains further on Sandro Cortese, challenging for Jordi Torres after his problems in Superpole, and Michael Ruben Rinaldi likewise disappointing in the end, having started so high on the grid. Teams Championship, and it's KRT out in front, 125 points clear thanks to the efforts of Rea and Haslam by comparison to Bautista and Davies for the Aruba IT Racing Ducati. Pata Yamaha still 3rd. Good battle going on over 4th position now between GRT Yamaha and the BMW Motorrad WorldSBK team. Independent Teams Championship, GRT Yamaha out on top. Turkish Pacetti, of course, making ground thanks to Razgatlioglu's 25 points. 35 between those top 2. GRT, of course, have 2 riders compared to Pacetti, with Razgatlioglu scoring their points. Manufacturers Championship, Kawasaki lead it only by 16. Ducati still in contention for that title. Yamaha, BMW and Honda rounding out our 5 manufacturers. Honda with a decent number of points today thanks to Leon Camia. What a return to WorldSBK from him. He'll be delighted with that. The Pirelli French round will be wrapped up here in Magny-Cours tomorrow. Sunday is race day with action in all 3 classes and 2 point scoring opportunities in World Superbikes. The European calendar reaches its conclusion. Don't miss it.